In the summer of 1986, 26-year-old Evelyn Rusk walked into the Tift County courthouse with a canvas satchel, a cashier's check, and one idea that every man in the room thought was ridiculous. She was there to buy a drowned orchard. 112 acres of old pecan trees sat 4 miles outside town, past the peanut fields and the low ditches that smelled of red clay after rain. 3 years earlier, a hurricane had pushed water across that land and held it there for weeks. The trunks had black tide marks. Half the limbs were dead. The ground stayed wet long after every other farm road dried. By the time the bank took it back, people had stopped calling it an orchard. They called it the sink. The auctioneer tried to move through the listing quickly. Nobody expected a fight for it. The farmers in the back leaned against the wall with their hats in their hands, grinning like men waiting for a joke to finish itself. Then Evelyn raised her number. The room went quiet in that mean, delighted way a room gets quiet when people think they are about to watch somebody ruin herself. County land agent Whit Parnell turned around in his chair and stared at her. "Miss Rusk," he said, loud enough for 3 rows to hear. "You understand those trees aren't worth cutting." Evelyn kept her number raised. "They won't bear right," he said. "The roots are drowned, the roads are washed, the packing sheds half caved in." He smiled a little. "What exactly do you think you're buying?" Evelyn looked past him through the tall courthouse window toward a strip of summer sky bright enough to hurt. Then she said, "I'm buying what the water didn't kill." Nobody laughed at first, not because the line impressed them, because they could not decide whether it was confidence or madness. The bid was low, embarrassingly low. The bank wanted the land off its books. The tax office wanted someone else responsible for the drainage. The neighboring farmers wanted the story, not the property. Evelyn paid nearly every dollar her grandmother had left her. No partners, no loan, no husband signing beside her, just her name. When the deed was stamped, Whit Parnell shook his head as if a young woman had just purchased a disease. By sundown, the whole county knew. At the feed store, they said she had bought mosquito water. At the diner, they said college had cooked her common sense. In the weekly paper, a retired appraiser named Boyd Satcher called it the most sentimental purchase of ruined ground I have ever seen. He wrote that Miss Rusk had not bought farmland. She had bought a liability with trees on it. But Evelyn Rusk had not come to that auction because she loved ruined things. She came because her grandmother had taught her that people who only look up at branches miss half the orchard. Nettie Rusk had spent 40 years grafting pecan limbs for men who signed the checks and took the credit. She could cut a scion clean with a pocket knife. She could tell a stressed tree by the taste of the sap, and she kept notebooks in a biscuit tin under her bed. Not pretty notebooks, field notebooks, rain dates, soil smells, blight years, bark scars, what grew after a flood, which trees carried mushrooms under them, which low places gave off a strange sweet musk in November when the air cooled and the leaves went copper. When Evelyn was 9, her grandmother would take her into old orchards after storms and make her kneel in the leaf litter. "Don't ask the tree what happened," Nettie would whisper. "Ask the ground what it remembers." Then she would lift a mat of leaves and show Evelyn the pale threads running through the dark soil. Not roots, not worms. Something finer, a hidden web, stitching the orchard together below the place where men made their estimates. Years later, at the university, Evelyn learned the formal language for what her grandmother had shown her. Fungal networks, symbiosis, mycorrhizal exchange, the quiet trade between roots and the unseen life wrapped around them. And in one late seminar, while the professor spoke about native truffles of the American South, Evelyn felt the old biscuit tin notebooks open inside her mind. The pecan truffle did not grow like a crop you could see from a truck. It hid underground. It formed with roots. Pecan roots, hickory roots, oak roots, and the best ground was often the kind of ground nobody respected anymore, because its value was not standing upright where a banker could measure it. That was when Evelyn thought of the drowned orchard, not the dead limbs, not the washed road, the roots. 112 acres of old root systems, stressed but not gone, wrapped in decades of fungal memory under soil. Nobody had disturbed because nobody thought it was worth disturbing. The county saw rot. Evelyn saw a locked pantry under the floorboards. The first year nearly broke her. She parked a dented white travel trailer beside the collapsed packing shed, patched the roof with tar paper, and spent the summer digging drainage cuts by hand. The mosquitoes came up in black clouds. The clay sucked at her boots. At night, frogs screamed from the ditches so loudly the trailer walls seemed to vibrate. She owned no tractor worth naming. She had a wheelbarrow, a mattock, 2 shovels, her grandmother's pocket knife, and a brown and white shelter dog with ribs showing and a nose that never stopped moving. She named him Biscuit, because Nettie would have laughed at that. Training him was not glamorous. It was slow, muddy, embarrassing work. Evelyn buried bits of cheese beneath damp leaves, then cotton cloth scented with mushroom oil, then harder hides, deeper pockets, stranger spots along the old rows where the pecan trees threw broken shade over the grass. Every time Biscuit found the scent, he got praise. Every time he dug too hard, Evelyn guided his paws back. They were not hunting treasure yet. They were learning a language. Meanwhile, the county kept watching. Trucks slowed on the road. Men lifted 2 fingers from their steering wheels and smiled after they passed. A few neighbors came by pretending concern, but their eyes went straight to the trailer. The ditch cuts, the dog, the woman walking old rows with a notebook in her back pocket. They did not see a farm. They saw a private collapse happening in public. And for a while, Evelyn gave them no evidence they were wrong. The first season produced nothing. The second season produced worse than nothing, because hope had had time to become expensive. Her savings thinned. Her truck needed a water pump. The trailer leaked over the bed. She sold her mother's silver flatware to buy fencing wire and dog food. In town, Whit Parnell told people, not unkindly, that she would probably sell by Christmas. Then Christmas came cold and wet and she did not sell. By the third winter, doubt changed shape. It stopped shouting. It became practical. It sounded like a banker explaining taxes. It sounded like a neighbor offering a fair price for the high corner that still drained. It sounded like her own voice at 2 in the morning, asking why a dead woman's notebooks should outweigh every living man in the county. One night, after 3 straight days of rain, Evelyn sat at the tiny trailer table, with a coffee cup gone cold between her hands. Water dripped from the ceiling into a pan beside the stove. Biscuit slept under the table, his paws twitching like he was chasing something in a better field. Evelyn opened the biscuit tin. The paper inside still smelled faintly of camphor and dust. She turned through her grandmother's notes until she found an entry from 1964, written after a wet fall when several growers had lost half their crop. Nettie had written, "Men quit on trees too early. A limb can die and leave the root talking. The ground does not mourn on our schedule." Evelyn read that line again, then once more. A limb can die and leave the root talking. That was the sentence that kept her from selling. Not because it guaranteed anything, because it reminded her what she was actually testing. She was not waiting for the trees to impress the county. She was waiting for the ground to answer. So the next morning, she put on her wet boots, opened the trailer door, and took Biscuit back into the old rows. The years began to do what years do when nobody is applauding. They changed things quietly. The ditches deepened, the standing water receded, grass returned in patches. Wild violets spread beneath the trees. The dead limbs cracked and fell. The living limbs, fewer but stubborn, leafed out each spring with a thinner, cleaner green. Evelyn learned the orchard by texture, the sour low places, the sandy rise near the north fence, the clay shelf where rain sat 2 days longer than it should, the old trees whose roots still pushed fine hairlines through the soil near the trunk. She mapped none of it the way the county mapped land. No neat promise of resale, no bold boundary lines. Her map was made of smells, slope, shade, and patience. Then, in November of her 6th year, Biscuit stopped under a pecan tree everybody else would have cut for firewood. He had been trotting ahead, nose low, tail loose. Suddenly, he froze. His ears lifted. His tail made one hard sweep. Then he began to dig. Not playfully, not randomly, with the furious certainty of an animal that had finally found the word he had been taught for years. Evelyn dropped to her knees beside him. "Easy," she whispered. "Easy." Her hands went into the cool leaf mold. The soil gave way in soft crumbs. 2 inches down, her fingers touched something firm, rounded, and alive. She lifted it carefully. It was not beautiful. It was small, brown, knobbled, no bigger than a quail egg. But when she brushed it clean and brought it to her face, the smell rose up so rich and strange that her eyes filled before she could stop them. Earth, pecan shell, garlic, wet leaves, something sweet and animal and old. The drowned orchard had spoken. The first harvest fit in a paper lunch sack, 11 ounces. That was all. 6 years of work, 11 ounces of proof. But proof does not have to be large to change the meaning of everything around it. Evelyn did not take the truffles to the local produce stand. She did not tell the diner. She did not call Whit Parnell. She cleaned each one with a soft brush at the trailer table, wrapped them in paper, and drove 3 hours to Savannah, in a dress she had ironed under a towel because the trailer had no proper board. Her target was a narrow restaurant on a side street near the river, a place run by a chef named Antoine Bell, who had built his reputation on treating Southern ingredients like they deserved white tablecloths. He almost turned her away. The lunch service had ended. The kitchen was behind schedule. A young muddy woman with a shoebox was not a priority. Then Evelyn opened the box. Antoine Bell leaned forward. His irritation vanished so completely it was like somebody had blown out a match. He picked up one truffle and turned it in his fingers. Then he cut it open. The interior was marbled, pale and brown, veined like something drawn by a creek through sand. He smelled it once, then again. "Where did you buy these?" he asked. "I didn't buy them," Evelyn said. "Then where did you find them?" She thought of 6 years of ditch water, wet socks, cold coffee, and men laughing in rooms where her name was not meant to matter. "I listened for them," she said. Antoine looked at her for a long second. Then he bought the whole box. The money was not enormous by city standards. To Evelyn, it felt like a roof repair, a water pump, 3 months of feed, and the first official notice that the county had been measuring the wrong crop. Before she left, Antoine wrote his private number on the back of a menu. "You call me first," he said, "not after others. First." The next year, Biscuit found more. Not pounds upon pounds. Never that kind of abundance. The orchard was not a factory, and Evelyn refused to treat it like one. But the truffles came back, under the old Stewart pecans near the low ditch, beneath 2 scarred hickories at the back fence, in a sandy strip where Nettie's notes had marked sweet ground after wet fall. Antoine told one chef in Atlanta. That chef told a buyer in Charleston. A food writer tasted them shaved over hot grits and wrote one paragraph that never named Evelyn, never named the farm, but used the phrase "a native southern truffle" with the force of buried thunder. After that, the road changed. It was still dirt, still rutted, still lined with ditches and blackberry cane. But now cars came down it that had no business on a farm lane. Chefs in pressed shirts, brokers with coolers, a professor from Athens, a man from New Orleans who offered too much money and asked too many questions about exactly which trees produced. Evelyn learned to say no. That may have been the second thing the orchard taught her. The first was patience. The second was protection. She never sold the location of a patch. She never let strangers walk without her. She harvested with a knife, not a rake. She left immature truffles in the ground. She refused buyers who wanted volume more than quality. And every time someone suggested she drain the whole place harder, push production, plant rows, scale up, turn the drowned orchard into a brand, Evelyn heard Nettie's voice. Ask the ground what it remembers, not what it can be forced to forget. 9 years after the courthouse auction, Whit Parnell came back. He arrived on a cool morning in a county truck, older around the eyes and slower getting out than Evelyn remembered. He stood beside the fence for a while, looking at the orchard with a face that did not know what to do with itself. The trees were still not pretty. Some lean, some were hollowed. Many carried scars where dead limbs had been cut away. The packing shed had been repaired, but not polished. The road still had puddles in its low spots. It did not look like wealth. That was what unsettled him, because by then, everybody knew enough to know that it was. Biscuit, gray around the muzzle now, barked once from the porch and decided the visitor was not worth standing up for. Whit took off his hat. "Miss Rusk," he said, "I owe you an apology." Evelyn was carrying a basket of pecan shells for mulch. She set it down beside the steps. He looked toward the rows. "I told half this county you had bought bad ground." "You did," she said. He swallowed. "I thought land value was timber, crop, road frontage, drainage, resale, things a man can put in a report." He looked embarrassed then, but not theatrical, just honestly smaller than he had meant to become. "I never priced what was under it." Evelyn said nothing. Whit rubbed the brim of his hat with his thumb. "How did you know?" The question did not sound like gossip now. It sounded like a man standing in front of a locked door, finally admitting he had never owned the key. Evelyn looked at the orchard, at the old pecan trunks with their black flood marks fading under new bark, at the ditches shining with last night's rain, at Biscuit asleep on the porch, at the ground holding more history than any courthouse ledger. "My grandmother taught me," she said, "that a tree can look finished from the road and still be working underground." Whit nodded slowly. Then, to his credit, he did not try to make the moment bigger than it was. He put his hat back on. "If you ever have a small box extra," he said, "my wife makes the best scrambled eggs in the county." Evelyn smiled. "I'll write you down for the ugly ones." He laughed then, softly, and left changed enough that people noticed. After that, when someone at the diner called it the sink, Whit corrected them, not loudly, not angrily, just firmly. "That is not sink land," he would say. "That woman understood value before any of us knew what value was. That became part of the story. Not the whole story, just the part the town could understand. Because the deeper part belonged to the orchard." 25 years passed. The dead limbs returned to soil. The packing shed became a curing room with screen shelves and a sink that ran hot water. The travel trailer disappeared, replaced by a small cypress house with a porch facing the oldest row. New pecan saplings grew between the veterans, not in perfect commercial lines, but in the pattern Evelyn believed the land would accept. She never expanded beyond the original 112 acres. Not because she lacked offers, because she knew the danger of confusing more with better. Each winter her harvest changed. Some years were generous, some years humbled her. In one dry season she sold almost nothing and refused to panic. In a wet year, Biscuit's granddaughter found so many truffles near the north fence that Evelyn had to call 3 chefs before noon. Over time, the orchard paid for itself many times over. Not in one spectacular check. In water pumps, roof boards, fence posts, taxes paid before they were due, and a life that did not require permission from the men who had laughed at the courthouse. The county's old appraisal records still listed the purchase price. People liked to bring it up because the number made the legend neat. But Evelyn never cared for that version. It made the story sound like she had beaten them at money. She had not. She had beaten them at attention. Near the end of her working years, Evelyn took on a student from the university, a quiet young woman who arrived with clean boots and left the first day with mud to her knees. Evelyn did not begin with lectures. She gave the student Nettie's pocket knife and told her to kneel beside an old pecan tree after rain. The student brushed back the leaves. Underneath, in the dark, the pale threads were still there. Not dramatic, not loud, not asking to be believed. Just working. Evelyn watched the young woman stare down at them and felt the old circle close. This was the inheritance now. Not just the land, not just the truffles. The discipline of looking below the place where certainty stops. Years before, Boyd Satcher had written that Evelyn Rusk had purchased a liability with trees on it. Whit Parnell had asked what she thought she was buying. The county had called it the sink. They were all counting branches. Evelyn had counted roots, and in the slow dark beneath a ruined orchard, the roots had been counting back.